Hey friends, just a quick reminder before we get into today's episode, come join us over on our Patreon. That's where we release bonus episodes every other week, and we've already got over 20 episodes from 2023 that you can download and binge right now for as little as $3 a month. We've covered so many good books there: Haunting Adeline, Chateau, Gothicana, and so many more. That's also where we'll cover any books in a series we continue, so Serpent and Dove, High Mountain Court, Serpent and the Wings of Night. You can continue those series with us on Patreon right now. Finally, as a patron, we let you know what we're going to read every month, so you can read along with us if that's your jam. Anyway, that's all from me. On to today's episode.
I could see because your glasses were like on the left side of your face and you were looking out the right side of your face. I'm like, she can't see what she's doing.
No, I couldn't, and I missed the whole 6 times.
Talk about her sex tape.
Well...
Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
So welcome to part 2 of Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If you have not read the book, or if you haven't listened to part 1 of our coverage, please do one of those things, because we're not going to recap all of the detail that you need to understand what the fuck's going on. So let's get into it. So when we last left Violet, she was leaving class and she was heading to what they call the challenges, which are essentially like structured matches between kids at the school, young adults at the school, to test their physical prowess, right? So they're literally battling each other on these fighting mats in a gym-like area.
Which, if you were here for part 1, this is still Divergent. They have these planned matches to show their prowess, and they're specifically fighting matches without weapons on mats, and they're still Divergent.
Yep. And we also learned from Violet's siblings' journal that the teachers that are setting up these brackets are kind of intentionally trying to weed out the younger people the weaker people first. So they'll pit really strong people against really weak people to try to get the weak people out of the running.
Which
is kind of fucked up, because you can't leave the college unless you're dead. So it's hey, will you just kill these weaklings off for us? Great. So Violet watches Rhiannon kick some ass, and it's fab. But then Jack comes by, her enemy for no reason, and he talks some shit. But Violet makes him, unfortunately not literally, shit himself by flicking a dagger next to his ears and his balls. So she flicks 2 daggers, one lands in the wall next to his head, and one of them lands between his legs near his balls. Dane is standing right there, and he immediately is concernicist and does not approve. However, Xaden is watching from across the room and subtly does approve. And of course, Violet takes note of that.
Oh, yeah. Also, this is the second time that Violet has missed an opportunity to cut off Jack's balls.
I know. Take a win when you get one. I mean, technically, she would be in violation of the code if she were to just outright kill him.
So I do have a question, because we do hear about the code and the rules and the violations. Are you just murdered if you violate? What happens? You're not going to be expelled, because that's not a thing.
I don't know. That's a good question. But I do know that, so if Violet were matched up with Jack in a challenge and, were made to fight him, she could kill him and be totally within her rights. But if she were to just, kill Jack as they're spectating, that would not be cool. And I'm
that's a problem.
I kind of get the difference, but not really, right? If you're trying to weed out, why not just make it, full-on Hunger Games for the first month and see who survives.
Right. Like, I mean, we saw that in Serpent in the Wings of Night, and it worked out just fine.
Right. Everybody was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah, that's a good question, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
So Violet's opponent is, of course, Orin. This is the person that she poisoned at breakfast, and Orin is physically ill. So Violet easily bests him, despite the fact that Orin is physically bigger and more adept at hand-to-hand fighting than Violet is. When she does best him, she takes one of Orin's daggers as a trophy. So another thing to mention here is that you can only... So when you entered the academy, you only had what was on your back, right? So if you were carrying a pack or if you had like clothes on or whatever, but any weapon you get subsequently, you have to win from somebody else. And so when she takes this dagger, she is up one weapon, which is a good thing for her.
I did like that. I think that's a fun way to show like your successes.
Yeah.
You just collect all of these daggers.
So then we get a blessedly brief montage of what the challenges look like over the next 5 weeks. The week after, she gives her opponent hallucinogenics so that her opponent can't focus in the ring. The week after that, her opponent loses all feeling in their feet. And the week after that, her opponent's vision goes blurry during the fight. On week 5, Violet also wins because her opponent is sluggish and ill. But she also doses the rest of the third wing so as not to draw attention to the similarities between her 5th and 1st opponents. And I'm like, there's a lot of convenient things happening here.
It is a lot, because I was thinking throughout this, like, because she knows who she's going up against. And I think some of them wouldn't have killed her. So she should have taken a couple losses to, like, not look so suspicious.
Yeah, I think so too, because 5 weeks of wins for somebody like Violet, who is obviously, like, notably physically weak, is suspicious.
And they're all like, they're wins of convenience because the other person is incapacitated. So
right,
like, she's not really winning. She's winning by forfeits almost.
Right. She's using all of the tools at her disposal, right? But not really being straightforward about it.
Also, when she doses everyone, does she dose herself? No. So she's just like,
well, she's not in the third wing, so her opponent's in
the third wing.
A different, like, club,
You're right.
Essentially.
I got that. The Cool Kids Club.
So she just makes them all look like they got food poisoning.
I forgot about that. It's just suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
So one of the things that Violet is most proud about is that she's bested all of her opponents in these past 5 weeks without killing them, which is not something that everyone can say, as 20 more cadets have lost their lives in the same period, specifically during these challenges.
Which sounds so scary. Like, I don't think there's enough. I mean, there's so much detail in this book, but just, can you imagine knowing that you're gonna go do this thing for school and, like, it's a 50-50 chance you might die.
Can you imagine
every week?
Can you imagine being an 18 or a 19-year-old and knowing that you have to kill your opponent?
No, that's so fucked up.
Week after week.
Week after week.
Fucking hell.
And I mean, like, I get that you need, like, the best of the best and the strong, but this is making some twisty people.
Okay, so going back to my big beef with this book and, like, the schools and, like, social norms that don't make sense, right? Like, my problem with this is that there's no conditioning, right? Like, they're just kind of thrown in, and there's no other evaluation of these humans other than, well, can you win in a fight? And it's like, okay, so you're conditioning your most powerful soldiers to be ranked with a bunch of serial killers, like psychopaths, right? So, like, what, make that make sense for me.
It doesn't make sense. And, like, they have battle brief, but it's literally what they're not, like, really learning anything.
No, they're not.
And then they have, like, dragon class, which we'll get to, but they're not, yeah, you're right, they're not learning how to be soldiers. And they're certainly not learning how to work together, which is something that they need to do as a unit.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this introduction, this first year, seems to me that it would engender a specific sense of, if I'm going to use the American term, rugged individualism, which is distinctly not team-focused.
It's very much not team-focused.
But what do I know? I'm not a military person. Whatever.
Right? I mean, like, maybe that's what the military is like. I don't know. Any military people out there? You tell me.
Okay, so we're in week 6, and Violet has dosed her opponent too early, and her opponent is taken to the medical ward. And so Xaden steps into their place to fight Violet instead. This is where he begins calling her Violence instead of her actual name. And my God, one of the things that I loved about this book is that there was not a fucking princess to be seen.
No. Violence, for one, is an awesome nickname. And it is so great to be like a pet name play on her actual name. Like, it was just chef's kiss.
Yep. No notes. Also,
no notes.
Especially in the context of Xaden essentially encouraging her violent tendencies.
Yeah.
I love
it. If you're going to survive, you better get in here. I love it. Not a fucking princess among us.
Not a fucking princess among us. So Xaden, of course, disarms all but one of Violet's daggers in this fight. And on the last one, he takes her to the mat. But, like, of course he doesn't take her to the mat like a regular, like, opponent would do. He takes her to the mat in, like, a sexy way. Because we all know what we signed up for here, right?
Right. We know why we're here.
He, like, takes his time making sure she feels his weight on her. And he instructs her on how she could have easily defeated him had she been going for blood. He also tells her she won't be able to serve tea to every opponent, insinuating that he knows about her poisoning habit. And Violet in this interaction is so flustered and angry and indignant. And also turned on.
And this whole conversation is, like, murmured in her ear. Like, no one else knows that he's, like, saying, hey, you can't poison everybody.
Yeah.
Which makes it even hotter.
Okay, but also...
also...
they basically look like they're fucking on the mat, right? Like,
oh, yeah. I picture her, like, he's, like, between her legs, and her legs are, like, up around him. Like, they could just be doing it.
Right. And he's, like, pressing down in all the places that you would imagine, like hips.
Near her neck.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I do like when this comes, like, full circle, though, with the daggers again later, because it's also really hot.
Yeah.
So, pin in that.
So, they are in the middle of a fucking gym, and everybody does see it, especially Dane, who's just like, and then so Xaden releases Violet, and as he gets up, he shouts at Dane to give Violet less sheltering and more instruction, because she's kind of shit at hand-to-hand combat.
Yes, because he keeps trying to be like, oh, my little princess, my delicate little flower, blurb.
Right.
Eye roll.
Thanks, Dad.
Fucking Dane. I swear to God, if he's endgame, I'm going to burn all of these books. I will buy them all just to roast. I would never burn a book, but I will be really mad. I will throw it into the ocean.
Yeah, I will be very mad. It's better not be fucking Dane, man.
I'll be so mad. I can't handle it.
So later, Violet and Dane are in Dane's room, and he's working out the kinks in Violet's muscles, kind of giving her a non-sensual massage. Violet asks him whether he thinks Xaden could have bonded a dragon and be plotting against Nevere at the same time. Dane says not, that dragons will protect the Vale at all costs because they are the sacred hatching grounds. What strikes me in this conversation is that Nevere is a country and not a place. So he could be plotting against the political structures of Nevere with full intentions of protecting the ancestral realms of the dragons, right?
Oh, that's a really good point.
So, I don't know. It seemed like they just drove right past that distinction. Dane's like, pish posh, applesauce, dragons can't be, they're infallible.
Oh, I didn't think about that. But also, like, Dane's just stupid.
Yeah, Dane's an idiot.
Stupid. Just stupid.
Speaking of Dane being an idiot, Dane goes on to tell Violet that he spoke to Markham, who's the professor head librarian guy. And Markham said that he would take Violet as a first year and not tell Violet's mother until she was a second year and already inducted as a scribe. Therefore, that would be the time that Violet's mother couldn't do anything.
I don't understand why there's this whole second year induction cutoff. Like, that's implying that if Violet had joined the scribes to begin with, she could just be pulled out in the first year. But then why is that not the same for anyone else? Like, why can none of the first years here leave the
alive.
riders. Yeah. I don't understand why her mom could do anything anyway. It just... Also, Dane, listen, bucko. She's doing fine.
Right.
She's doing fine. Let's get it together here.
Going back to the social norms or rules that don't make sense, like, there's nothing that the general could do about a particular soldier that she wanted to. She would find a fucking way.
No.
Like, she could say, she could accuse Violet of insubordination, right? And send her back to being a first-year writer. Like, that whole supposition is just, it's ridiculous.
No, and like this is kind of the crux on what the whole, really what the plot is based on, is that she was not supposed to be there and her mom is forcing her to be there. But it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No, exactly. So Dane goes on to tell Violet that during the threshing, first years attack each other along with being attacked by the dragons. And second and third years must watch but not intervene. And so he's basically begging her not to put him through that. And Violet... God, her snark comes out in the best of times. She says, I'll think about it.
She does have some really good snark.
Well, and I love that relatively soon, right? Like, we're in the first third of the book. She's already not taking his shit, right? She's already like, this is annoying as fuck. Can you just shut up?
Yes, which I really appreciate. And it is a fun, like, slippery slope to watch. Because he tries to get, like, closer to her, and she's very much like, this is not what I want anymore.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye. Can we just be friends? That'd be great.
Can we just be friends? And also, like, maybe not even that, because you're annoying.
Yeah.
And you're a shit friend.
You're a bad friend.
You're a bad friend.
So we next see Violet training for the presentation vertical obstacle course. They call it the presentation. And she's training with the rest of her squad. We learn about... We learn about a couple of...
Sorry.
Course.
You don't have to change it. It's just funny because, like, funny. Violet's pretty obstinate. So.
Yeah. So we learn about a couple of people here. A new person is Tynan, who is a gentleman on Violet's squad who's kind of a dick. He openly accuses Violet of sleeping her way to the top because she spends a lot of time with Dane. But the rest of her squad mates come to her defense. We learned that they are the only squad left unscathed since formation, so they haven't lost anybody. And once the trial starts, they very clearly have each other's back, right? So even though Tynan's talking shit or whatever, and there's some tension there, they're helping each other up the course, and they're trying to figure this out. They all start at 60-second intervals, so they have to go up this vertical obstacle course one at a time, but they can, like, coordinate together once they've started, right? So it's really just to space them out so they're not running into each other, not to necessarily make them work individually. Violet, for example, teams up with a squad mate named Aralee, but soon after, a dragon flies overhead as they collaborate on an obstacle, and Aralee loses her balance and falls to her death.
Which, holy shit.
Yeah, no pressure.
Because the presentation feels very American Ninja Warrior.
Oh, 100%.
Until Aralee falls to her death. And then it's like, oh.
Oh. Like, it's like American Ninja Warrior if the floor was actually lava.
Yes, the floor is actually lava, or you were like 100 feet in the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Aralee, girl, you gotta get used to the dragons. I'm sorry.
I know. As she continues on this practice, Violet realizes that the preferred path that most people take won't work for her because she's too short to span a specific distance for one of the obstacles called the chimney. One thing that I could have done without is she's weak and she's short.
Ugh, I know. So redundant.
It's like the TikToks that you see. It's like she was so small she could fit inside a teacup. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, like, you got it. And she has weird hair. Like, can we just pick just one thing?
Or, like, a two, right? But the weird hair, and the sickness, and the chronic disease, and the fact that she's short, and she's the general's daughter. Just fuck off, man.
Right. Well, and even, like, the short thing, I think the fact that she is weak is enough for her not to be able to do this skill anyway.
Right, exactly. Like, you
didn't have to be like, I can't reach it because my arms are stubby. I have a big head and little arms. It's just, she was so small she could fit inside a teacup.
Yeah. So after practice, Violet seems to be taking Arlie's death pretty hard because she ends up taking her things to the incinerator, feeling responsible for her death in some way. As she kind of processes what has happened, she begins to really pull further away from Dane and his overprotectiveness, flat out ignoring him or telling him that he wants to be alone. On her way back from the incinerator, she encounters Xaden and his ilk again. And Xaden tenses as soon as he knows that she's there and tells the others to leave, because of course he does. When Violet and Xaden speak, Violet asks whether he's decided to kill her. It'd make her planning a lot simpler, right, if she knew that she was going to die. And he tells her he's undecided.
Which is okay. I'm
Which
okay with
at
that.
this point just feels like a fun thing that they talk about.
It is fun, and it just kind of continues to go.
She goes on to ruminate out loud that the thing that sucks the most about this school is the hope. She's made it in this far and now she's hopeful, but she doesn't really have a reason to be so. Xaden tells her, quote, "You want to know why you're still alive? Because you're the scale I currently judge myself against every night. Every day I let you live, I get to convince myself that there's still a part of me that's a decent person. So if you want to quit, then please spare me the temptation and fucking quit. But if you want to do something, then do it."
I really loved this line. I feel like it tells us a lot about Xaden's character that, I don't know. I feel like it comes full circle later, but it tells us a lot about him now. And I feel like he's trying to tell her something without telling her.
Yeah, so I have to say, when I first read this, like, in context, I was like, dude, fuck off. What the fuck are you saying? I'm the scale you currently judge yourself by every night? Like, where do you get off? But now, of course, knowing what I know about where the story goes, like, it hits different, and I agree with you. I think he's trying to tell her something without saying it outright.
But I do understand that, because when you first read it, you're like, you're a pretentious asshole.
Yes! Like, oh, thank you so much.
When I let you live.
Right, like, oh, so generous.
Oh my god. But after reading it, I'm like,
yeah, okay.
It's weirdly kind of hot. I don't know.
Weirdly kind of inspirational.
It is! Like, okay, so speaking of weirdly inspirational, I saw this thing about depression on, like, Instagram, and it was like, you know, sometimes my depression tells me to kill myself, but if it wants it to happen, it better act like a real fucking disease and take off my organs one by one.
Oh my god.
And then it's like my brain, kill yourself. Me, do it yourself.
Oh my god, I love it.
And I was like, that's weirdly uplifting.
Yeah, weirdly. It's like, what, you're too lazy to do it yourself? Come on.
Then I'm not gonna do it, bitch.
So Xaden goes on to clarify that, quote, the right way isn't the only way. And that definitely was pointedly telling her, like, just because people are picking this one route up the obstacle course doesn't mean that you have to follow that example. So practice for Violet's squad continues over the next... She considers taking the out to go into the scribe quarter, but doesn't believe that her mother wouldn't find out. But more importantly, she doesn't know if she could live with herself if she left. She's invested now.
Which I am glad for. I mean, I'm sick of this having an out as being even a fucking plot point. But I do like that we do get this... I like that we get this inner monologue of her saying, I've already made it this far. If I quit now, like, what was even the point?
I think, too, I don't know, there's something to be said for Violet choosing something for herself, because it feels like, at least in the book that we see, she hasn't gotten a lot of that, right? She spent the last year doing something that her mother told her to do, trying to live up to the specter of her dead brother and the awesomeness that is her sister. And for her to actually be here and be like, you know, this is kind of awesome. I might like this. Is a nice arc.
It is nice. And, like, I'm actually not, like, bad at this. Like, maybe I can do it.
Right. So presentation day arrives, the day of the obstacle course. And Dane begs Violet to leave.
Ugh, shut up.
God, just get out of my face, man.
Literally. Because he's touching her.
Almost literally what Violet says. Yes.
Yes. Get out of my face.
He is touching her. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. I know. I forgot. I didn't notice it anytime we were reading it, and now it's going to come up later. So if you guys have not read this book and you're here for the journey, just, most times we talk about Dane talking to Violet, he's touching her in some way.
Which, as I read it, I even found creepy, right? Because it's like that guy friend that you have that's just like overly familiar, and like I don't even like my girlfriends or my family like touching me as often as Dane touches her.
Yes.
Her, like usually... her face and her shoulders, and just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's usually like her face or shoulders, like this weird caress, which is not like you, Catherine, are the other half of my soul. I don't think I've ever touched your face unless we're like drunk and I'm like, oh, I love you. But it's not like in these, it's just weird. Don't touch me.
I never greet you with a face caress like he does.
I'm going to do that when I see you for New Year's.
That's great. I love it. Can't wait.
Actually, I'm not. It freaks me out to even think about like touching your face like that.
It feels creepy.
It feels creepy.
So, it's Violet's turn on the obstacle course, and she does really well. She makes it to the chimney, but instead of facing the chimney head on, she uses one of the ropes that are on the side of the course. And these ropes serve two purposes. One, they help people kind of reorient themselves if they lose their footing, but also if they make a mistake, they can use the ropes to go back down and try a different route. The problem is that they dock 30 seconds of time whenever somebody touches the rope. So she takes that dock, and then she uses it to basically swing and catapult herself up to the top of the course. And when she gets, within reach, she uses one of her daggers to essentially stick it in the side of the obstacle course and use it as that extra leg up to get to the top and the finish line.
Which is, I liked this fix. I didn't expect it to be this way, and it's pretty badass.
It is pretty badass, and I like that. I like the way that this resolves itself, right? So let's talk about that before we get into what I liked about this. At the top, Amber Mavis, who was the wing leader that Dane was close to, quote unquote, accuses Violet immediately of cheating. The rope cost Violet 30 points, 30 seconds, but the dagger is one that she crossed the bridge with, right? And according to the Codex rules, that makes it part of her, Violet, as a writer, and therefore legal tender in any challenge. And Xaden, of all people, affirms her score and the legality, and then tells her to tend to her leaking palms because they're bleeding. So I liked this idea of whatever you cross the bridge with is a part of your person for two reasons. One, like, I don't know, I just like the personal ownership of like being attached to your weapons. But two, when you like knock someone on their ass in the challenges and you take their knife, you're taking part of them.
Yes, like you're taking a bodily part, which also makes this interesting that Xaden affirms this because he disarmed all of the daggers she's won except for the specific one that she crossed the parapet with.
The one that she held to Jack's balls too.
Yes. Which is fun.
Yes, very fun.
Also, fuck you, Amber Mavis. She's the worst.
Yeah,
she and Dane deserve each other.
They really do. At the end of this presentation trial, 169 cadets remain, and that means that 69 will not bond. Nice. Violet's squad placed 11th out of 36th, so they're not, not first, not last. Nice and middling.
Middling to poor.
Right. And apparently what happens is that they do this vertical obstacle course, and then they go immediately to a canyon kind of towards the back of this arena, and they walk along it, and on the sides of the canyon are all of the dragons. So they're like literally presenting themselves to the dragons for them to like think about who they want to pick for the threshing.
Which this made sense because the first time they called the obstacle course the presentation, I was like, why? But why?
But why? Yes.
But why? And this is terrifying. This presentation, this is what I'm like, okay, dragons are scary.
Yeah, dragons are pretty scary. So let's talk about what happens at the presentation, because a couple of things do. One, the squads walk with each other, and the dragons are in kind of order of power. So they start with the quote-unquote weakest dragons, and then they end with the most powerful dragons. So as she walks with her squad, Violet intentionally walks with Rhiannon and tries to make her calmer by chatting about Rhiannon's niece/nephew, her newest niece/nephew. It's the first child that Rhiannon's sister has, right? So Violet can kind of tell that Rhiannon's nervous from all of these dragons and is actively trying to put her at ease. As they walk, they see a feathertail, which is described as a small golden dragon that everybody hates on. But Violet defends, right? It's small. It's kind of, I guess, more like whimsical looking than these other dragons.
Kind of shiny.
But like literally all of these other dragons have like hammers and maces and swords on their tail. And this dragon's like, I've got feathers. Aren't they pretty?
Yes, and I'm also kind of shiny, which is not great in battle because I don't blend in.
Yeah, I also predicted that she was going to bond. But I was torn because at once I was like, she's for sure going to get the black dragon. But then this fucker showed up and I was like, no, she's going to get the weak dragon. Fuck.
But then,
yeah. Okay, so more stuff that happens. 2 cadets in Violet's squad are killed. Both were talking shit about Violet, and 2 green dragons approached Violet and smelled their sibling on her because Mira's dragon is green, and the scales of that dragon are what Violet's armor is crafted out of. And so essentially, once they pass, those 2 guys that were talking shit, the green dragons just incinerate them.
Which is awesome. And also terrifying.
Very terrifying, but I kind of like that the green dragons were like, you know what, fuck you guys.
Yeah, fuck you guys. But what's so scary about this whole scene to me is that they're walking like single file, and then because then they have to like turn around and walk back or something, but they have to like step over the like charred remains of people.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they have to turn around, but they just
it's just like a...
Yeah. But there are people in front of them, right? So they walk in the order that they finished the obstacle course. So there's like 10 more squads ahead of them, and they have to walk over those people.
And not acknowledge it.
No, don't worry about it. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. Everything's fine.
Yeah. Not okay.
No, it's terrifying.
So, I don't know how many days after, but it's the threshing. And we find out that the threshing is always on October 1st. I wish that it was October 3rd. So I could make a "it's October 3rd" joke.
I made a "the limit does not exist" joke like an hour ago to someone.
So at the threshing, it's clear that Tynan and Oren, so Tynan, remember, is on Violet's squad, and Oren is the guy that she food poisoned, essentially. Both of these assholes have sided with Jack, and they talk smack at Violet as they prepare to enter the forest where the dragons will essentially choose them. Rhiannon and Riddick, so Riddick is also another squad mate of Violet's, they both wish her luck, as does the rest of the remaining squad, and then the threshing begins. So essentially what's happening here is that all of the cadets are let loose in this forest that's like near the school somewhere and also near the Vale, I think. And dragons and people are hiding and they're trying to like meet each other but not like get incinerated by a dragon that they like wrong by looking them in the eyes and not get killed by their fellow squad mates. So like it sounds very Hunger Games in here.
It's very Hunger Games up in here. And it's kind of like, yeah, like they have to read the dragon's body language to see if like they can approach.
Right.
Like the dragons aren't like hiding from them. They're hiding to see like, you gonna fuck it up?
Right, exactly.
It's very... I also, probably because of the Hunger Games vibes, I just pictured it like in this weird like dome enclosure, which it's not. But I picture this like, we're in this circle dome area.
Right, like you couldn't leave if you wanted to kind of place.
Yeah.
Another thing to note is that this ceremony or like this event, the threshing, takes a long time. So we see Violet after a few hours of this thing, and she's feeling anxious. She hasn't felt a pull toward any particular dragon yet, and they've been taught that, you know, if a dragon is calling to you, you'll know. But don't approach a dragon if you don't feel the pull, because you're going to die.
Because you're going to die.
Right. So Violet's thinking, okay, maybe because I'm weak and so short with my stubby legs, maybe I just need to climb a tree, and then I'll feel something because I'll be higher up and I'll be able to see more, right?
It's like when you hold your cell phone up to the satellites when you don't have service.
Right, or did you ever hold it up to your chin to like, I don't know, if that actually ever worked?
I don't know. It felt like it worked. I did do that.
Yeah, I did too.
It seemed like it worked. It makes no sense why it would work.
I will fully admit that sometimes I still do that when I'm very desperate.
Oh, I will too. And sometimes it works.
Sometimes it does work.
Yeah.
So when she climbs up a tree, Violet realizes that there are plenty of other cadets that haven't found a dragon as well, and this she finds comfort in it, right? So it's like, You're not the only one. It's not like you and 3 other people who are left. But as she goes to climb down, she sees the golden dragon out of the corner of her eye, and this golden dragon's kind of just sitting in a clearing by itself, like an idiot.
Real derpy looking in my mind.
With her pretty feather tail.
Yes, her pretty feather tail.
Like, maybe there's some butterflies that she's playing with, just like...
That's literally what I picture.
Yeah. Like, very Lisa Frank.
Yes!
Vibes.
Very Lisa Frank, yes.
And of course, as she climbs down, Violet overhears Jack and company talking about how they're going to go hunt the gold dragon. So she decides to run ahead and warn it, like a good Samaritan. She does arrive first, so in front of Jack and Orin and Tynan, but as she's trying to warn this dragon, it's just giving her the emptiest, derpiest of looks. And it's just like, okay, what do you... It's kind of like when you ask your dog why it shat on the rug, and it's just like, but am I not cute?
But don't you love my face? Like, I just picture that head tilt of like,
Huh? Yeah.
Also, are they allowed to kill the dragons? Like, or are they just crazy?
I think it's so unheard of that there's probably not a rule about it.
Okay, because it seemed like such a... Like, why? Don't you have a reason to be here?
Yeah. Well, and especially because, like... Okay, so this is another beef that I have, talking about societal norms that don't make sense. Jack and these 2 other assholes have already bonded with a dragon. They've already found the dragon that's calling to them, but they haven't, like, done the thing where they, like, connect with the dragon and then they fly off into the sunset to the finish line, right? So these dragons, the all-knowing, infallible dragons that nobody can question ever because they're always right, are picking these sociopaths that are then going to go kill... It's not giving anything away to say. What we then find out is a baby dragon. How does that make sense?
And the other dragons know that.
Right.
This dragon's not a secret from the other dragons. I don't know. And I did have a beef with this because it felt like another like forced plot point. I'm like, but it doesn't make sense why this would happen.
No dragon should be bonding with at least Jack.
At least Jack. Because we'll learn about the bond, but, like, they bond. So, like, they know your wills and your thoughts and your, like, intentions.
Right.
So.
They see into your soul.
Yes! We just have this little derpy gold girl that's like, hi.
I'm having a great time.
I don't think I'm supposed to be here.
So... Violet's trying to warn this thing, and it's not moving. And then, of course, the boys arrive, and they're thrilled because now they get to kill the weak dragon and the weak rider, right? They're like, great, 2 birds, and I have this one very long, very pointy sword. Before they can really make a move, Xaden and his dragon arrive and try to warn them off. But, of course, they don't listen, right? Because they're like, what are you going to do? You can't intervene. And then they attack Violet. She fights back, of course. She wounds Jack to the point that he runs away. The fucking coward. And then she fights the other 2, knocking Orin unconscious. But Tynan is poised to kill her. Just as he goes to deal the finishing blow, a black dragon arrives and incinerates Tynan on the spot. This black dragon tells Violet she should end Orin as well, but she refuses. Then he's like, fine, climb on. I'm choosing you. And she's like, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
You must be mistaken. I don't want to cause any offense here. You seem to be very busy, a very busy gentleman. I can just be on my way.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Right.
A very busy gentleman.
But he insists. He tells her, climb on my back before I incinerate you or something like that. Something to that effect.
Sexy. Yeah. He's just like, shut the fuck up and get on my back.
Right. And so she's like, great, noted. Happy to do so, but I can't climb up your leg. Because the way that people are supposed to get on dragons is to climb up their leg, which is why the obstacle course is vertical and designed as it's supposed to be. So this black dragon bows for her, creating basically a ramp with his leg that she can just doop, 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 walk right up.
When he says something like, I don't need a dagger in my leg.
Yeah, he's like, really, this is self-preservation on my side.
Right.
And so this is, like, really unheard of because dragons are proud creatures that don't really think a whole lot of humans. They're, like, necessary evil or inconvenience. And so Violet's trying not to think about that too hard. Once she's seated, the dragon tells her, "My name is Tiernanak, son of a word I can't pronounce and another word I can't pronounce, descended from the cunning another word I can't pronounce line." But goes on to say, "But I'm not going to assume that you'll be able to remember that once we reach the field, so Tern will do until I inevitably have to remind you." Which I appreciated.
I really appreciate that because, like, I was not going to remember anything he said either.
Not at all. And honestly, I'm not sure it's important in this book.
It's super not.
Yeah.
It's super not.
And my note here is that the snark between these two is already chef's kiss, right? So he's, to be clear, the dragon is not talking words out loud. He is speaking in Violet's mind, and Violet is speaking to him in her mind back. And they are just snarking it up. He's like, "Can you fucking hurry up?" And she's like, "If you would make it easier for me, Your Highness, that would be great."
I would love to. Good sir.
Right.
Their relationship is my favorite relationship in this book.
It is. Like, fuck Satan. Give me Dragon Daddy.
I didn't see that in your notes.
My next note is Ruby Dixon has ruined me.
Oh my god. What? No one said this was YA and not why choose.
Look, we don't know that they can't shapeshift into humans.
We do know that Taryn gets it on a lot.
A lot.
Like, a lot. Thank you, Ruby Dixon.
Thank you so much. Oh my god. So,
Jesus.
This black dragon takes flight, and Violet tries desperately to keep hold, but she's basically, like, riding bareback on a horse in the air, right? And she's weak and short, and so she can't hold on, and she eventually falls, right? Falls off into the sky. We learn going into the next chapter that surviving the threshing is not the only challenge. You also have to survive the flight to the flight field as well. And based on that first flight, it seems like this is not something that Violet is going to survive. However, Taryn catches her as she falls, and he flips her back up so she can be seated again, and then he uses his power to lock her in place so they can show off with some fancy flight work. He's like, "We'll work on this, but I kind of have to show off right now, so just hang tight."
Because you look real weak, and I can't have you making me look real weak.
Right, exactly.
And he basically says that. He's like, "Don't make me look stupid."
Right. Just sit tight. I'm going to help you.
I'm going to help you. Don't worry about it.
When they land in the flight field, Taryn lands right at the front. He's, like, coming in for landing, and these dragons, like, scuttle out of the way. They're just like, "Oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were coming. I didn't know this was your seat."
So sorry.
And Violet is mortified. She's like, "Can we... Of course this is happening to me." When they land, Taryn again extends his legs so Violet can just slide on down. And that certainly gets everybody's attention, right? Like, not only does she have a black dragon that she's riding, the black dragon is essentially kowtowing to what most people assume to be the weakest rider.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, the gold dragon is also here. So the Lisa Frank Feathertail guy is just like having a great time.
Hello,
prancing
I'm also
around.
here. I literally picture her just like galloping around like a pony.
Yeah, kind of like when you arrive someplace and somebody's got a dog that's really excited and they do that like hop thing in a circle.
Yes, that's what I picture.
Yeah. Violet looks at this gold dragon and is like, "Can you be careful? And maybe next time you're in a field and people are coming to, like, I don't know, unalive you, fly away."
Please.
But the little dragon basically telepathically says to Violet, "Sure, Jan." And Violet's like, "It's very rude to talk to a writer that's not yours, just so you know."
Which, like, there's the sass all around. At this point, I thought that Taryn and the gold dragon were mates. And in the moment when I thought that was really cute to me. But now, reading that in my notes, it creeps me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know.
Yeah.
But I needed to share that.
Yeah, I get it. I didn't really know what I had two thoughts, right? I did think maybe it was like a young dragon, But the other part of me was like, maybe it's like the golden snitch and it's like a really special dragon that they don't even teach them about.
That's what I thought, that it was like some like special dragon.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she is special.
She is very special. So Violet goes to check in, right? So you gotta find your dragon, you gotta survive this flight, and then you gotta survive the check-in process, right? Which is just bureaucracy. And of course, at the check-in desk, Violet's mother and the General Melgrin. Yeah, General Melgrin are there. And they almost say the Black Dragon's name, but Violet's mother basically is just like, shh, don't say it. She has to know it, right? And so she's implying that Violet might be lying or somehow conning everybody into thinking that she rode this Black Dragon out of the ether.
How do you think she conned the dragon into doing that?
Right. I'm like, ma'am, what on earth do you think is actually happening here? How, if you think you think your daughter is so weak, make that make sense to me.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
So Violet, of course, is indignant, right? And she gives them Tir Nanok's name. And everybody's just like, oh, shock gasp. It is
she
true.
Knows.
But then the golden dragon gives Violet a mental nudge and is just like, oh, so me. This is my name. And Violet's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, right?
What? Say it. Say it.
So the golden dragon's name is Andarnarum, and I know that I'm saying that incorrectly, and I'm so sorry. Andarnarum. So Violet gives 2 dragons names, and all hell breaks loose.
Unheard of.
Unheard of. Shock, gasp. How could you? The generals argue about whether Violet can bond with 2 dragons while Violet goes to get patched up, because she's, remember, pretty beat up from the fight that she had with the 3 guys. And she's like in these makeshift medical tents. And guess who's also there? It's Jack, the coward.
The coward.
He begins to make a scene, but then quickly realizes that Violet has bonded to Tern and that she hasn't narked on him, right? Like, she hasn't said a fucking word about what happened in the threshing. And so instead, he just kind of sulks off. He's just like, fine. Live to die another day. Professor Cowrie is there and tells her that the generals can argue all they want, but ultimately the dragons decide what's going to be done.
Can't take away one of her dragons.
Violet goes back to her dragons and tells them that they're causing a scene. And Tern's just like, yeah, I don't fucking care. Stay with the wing leader while we're in council. And she's like,
what?
You can't be serious.
Him?
And Tern's like, can you stop being dramatic? Just stay with fucking Xaden, okay?
Like, just please go over there.
Right.
Little girl, shut up.
So Clara, Melgrin's dragon, arrives and like totally mean mugs the shit out of Violet. Just like making hard eye contact, like big black mean dragon. And Violet's just like, I feel like I should be scared, but I also have one of those now.
And mine might be bigger.
Right. Violet joins her friends, Rhiannon, Riddick, and Sawyer, all of whom bonded successfully and are also the only ones left of their squad. So, of course, Violet was there when Tynan died, but she doesn't know what happens to the rest. Dane joins them and immediately takes Violet to the side and tries to convince her to choose the golden dragon so she won't be in danger. Of course he does.
That's not how it fucking works.
She doesn't have a fucking choice, dude.
No.
Not really. Neither
Not
do
really.
you, so fuck off.
Get out of here. Get out of my face.
Right. It's just so exhausting, especially like around this point. Every single time we see Dane in a scene, he's just saying shit like this, like beating down Violet's ability, like not having faith in her, and like, God, that's not a good friendship at all.
No, it's a terrible friendship. Like, they literally don't have any positive conversations anymore.
No. Dane goes on to tell Violet, though, that Tern and Xaden's dragon are mated pairs, and they're the strongest mated pair in centuries. So if she stays bonded to Tern, she will be dragged into battle at Xaden's side. So they're technically a 5-some now, and I know this is why not why I choose. However, 5 is a great number.
5 is one of the perfect numbers for a reverse harem.
Right.
Or just a regular, I mean, this is just a whole coupling. So with this whole, like, Tern is mates with Xaden's dragon. Very much we get this like fated mates vibe. And I was like, fated mapes.
Fated mapes? I love fated mapes.
Me too. Fated mates via dragons is totally fine by me.
Yeah, because then it's like, I don't know. Like, I just like you don't get a choice of it all.
Yeah, but you don't have that force, that immediate intimacy either.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You're stuck together, but, like, you don't have to like each other.
No, not at all.
But it's also not the, Liz and what's his name from the Alien Barbarians, where you're fated mates, but, like, he kidnaps you? Because that's the other side. I don't like that either.
Right, it's the opposite pendulum swing for me.
Yes, I want to be right in the middle.
Violet goes on to tell Dane about what happened during the threshing, and Dane thinks that Xaden intervened intentionally to plot Violet's demise.
How?
Violet, however, sees it as confirmation that Xaden doesn't actually want her dead, because she's convinced that she saw Xaden take a step forward before Tynan got incinerated.
And just the mental leaps that Dane takes.
What was he gonna do? Fucking kill her in the threshing when everybody's watching? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, because, like, that's still against the codex, because he's not part of the threshing, because he's already bonded. He can't intervene. So, Dane, what did you think was good? He was going to intervene, but in a way to save her, not to, like, make her... Xaden didn't, like, bring in Jack and was like, here you go.
Right. Okay, but the other thing about this that bothered me was that Dane's whole thing was, please don't make me watch you die during the threshing.
Jesus.
Dane, where the fuck were you? I thought you were going to be watching Violet the whole time.
Yeah, because you weren't. You were with your butt buddy, I think.
Amber,
that's her name.
At this point, Xaden joins the conversation, and he reveals that it was his dragon who called Terran because his dragon, Scale, is too fond of Endarna, which is the nickname of the small golden dragon. Xaden expresses that he's not happy about being chained to Violet, right? Because he's strongly bonded to Sigale, and Terran is her mate. If any of the four of them, plus Endarna now, die, the others might die as collateral. So that's not a great position for anybody to be in.
No. And even though Xaden is kind of on Violet's side, she's still weak. Like, she's still kind of a death risk. Yeah.
She's a liability.
She's definitely a liability. But I did like the extra layer of this, like, domino effect of their relationships now. Like, not only do you have this fated mates issue, but, like, you are all now literally linked.
Right.
To survive.
Yeah, so I think we might have covered this in episode 1, but if we didn't, and or just to reiterate, if a dragon dies, the rider dies with them. It doesn't matter if they're on the other side of the fucking world, the rider dies. If a rider dies, the dragon's totally fucking fine.
Yes, but it may never bond again.
It may never bond again, right? And so the point that I think they're making here is that they don't know what the bond between Violet, Terran, and Endarna is going to be like because there's never been a threesome before. Add to that there's 3 dragons, so 3 points of death entry, essentially. And if Terran and Sigale are fond of Endarna, they might also die if Endarna dies.
Yes. So we just have this. So the first time I read this, I did struggle a little bit because I was like, the dragons are fine if they die, so, like, who really gives a shit? Because,
right.
Because in my head I was like, okay, so if Violet dies, Xaden's fine. Like, nothing happens to the rest of them.
So is Terran, right?
Yeah. But I didn't really think about it the other way, that if, like, she is weak, then that's going to put Terran in danger.
Right.
And then it all made sense to me. But the first time I was like, this isn't a problem.
I think also something that maybe was unintentionally woven into these conversations in the first book is I'm pretty sure that the bond between Sigale and Xaden and Violet and Terran are unique. So I think, and I would have to read book 2 to confirm this, but my guess is that it does work the other way. So if Xaden dies, Sigale would die, and if Violet dies, Terran would die.
I think so too, because it is unique and powerful. And the crossway, because like if these two are bonded, one dies, then like all of them die. But the first time I read it, I was just like, y'all are fine.
Yeah.
Like,
you're fine.
Like, so she dies. Okay.
You're being dramatic. It's really fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But I really liked this added layer of complication.
I did too, especially because, and I said it before, but I'll just reiterate, and Darna is a juvenile dragon.
Bebe.
And we'll find out later that Sigale and Taryn are basically raising her as their own, but she's not theirs. And so it's like, it's kind of cool that this like childless couple adopted a child, and now they have these two other like straggler humans that are a part of their family unit, and it just brings back Dragon Tales.
Let's all go to Dragon Tales.
Yep, there you go.
Come along, take my hand.
So Dane accuses Xaden of intervening illegally in the threshing, and Xaden asks if Dane wouldn't have done the same thing if he had the opportunity, right? He's basically making the point that I couldn't just let them, like, hurt Violet or this other dragon. And Dane says that he would have obeyed the rules. And Violet's heart is being smashed by both men in the conversation. One she understands and one she doesn't. I don't understand why her heart's being smashed by Xaden.
Me either. Because she already knows that he was going to intervene to save her.
Right, and she already has this narrative in her head that he doesn't want to be around her and that he wants to kill her. So, like, what's the big deal?
So what's the big deal? I get the Dane issue, because it sucks to hear from your quote-unquote best friend, like, no, I would have let her die, because them's the breaks, man.
Them's the breaks, man. I mean, it doesn't matter how much I love somebody, but I gotta obey the rules.
I gotta follow them rules. But
shucks.
Shucks. But the Xaden thing didn't make sense to me.
No. So the dragons confer, and ultimately the bond stands. The riders are then confirmed and subsequently marked by their dragon. And during this whole thing, Violet's mother never once looks at her again. Doesn't acknowledge her at all.
I need an answer as to why she hates her.
I know, I do too. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It just makes her totally unlikable, in this situation totally unrelatable.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. I would rather have seen like weird, like, that restraint.
Sidelong glances or whatever.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, even like suspicion or like anger. Like,
right.
But not just this weird cold or awe. Like, give me some emotion.
Truly, like any kind of reaction. But
any
like,
kind of reaction.
You know, she's not slipping her secret notes. She's not trying to pull her to the side. Like, she's not even acknowledging her at all. And I'm just like, well, that just makes you a heartless bitch.
Yeah. Not even like a snarky congratulations. Like, you just don't exist to me.
Yeah. Which is weird. So Dane comes over to celebrate with Violet, and Taryn and Darna help Violet see her mark through their eyes. So they share brain hole connections, right? But that also means that they can use each other's visions sometimes. And we learn that her mark looks like this, quote, a glistening black relic of a dragon mid-flight, stretching from shoulder to shoulder, and in the center, a silhouette of a shimmering golden one, which I love.
Badass.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of what the cover of the book looks like too, which I like.
Yeah, I really liked that.
In the heat of the celebration, Dane kisses Violet.
I'm sorry. What signals were you picking up that this was the time?
What signals were you picking up that I was close to splooshing? Because I want to nip those in the bud, please.
Like, I don't... the segue into this kiss from just saying I literally would have let you die and watched you die is so weird to me.
This guy can't read the room to save his fucking life.
No!
And Violet immediately knows she's not into it. She says, quote, it was everything I've ever wanted, except shit, I don't want it anymore.
So it was...
Ooh.
I felt that.
Yeah, who hasn't been there? Yikes.
Oh, yikes.
So Violet spends that night in her own private room. It's the first time that she's had her own private room since she got there, because she is now a bonded writer. In the morning, she sees Sawyer coming out of Rhiannon's room and other couples emerging as well. Everybody was celebrating but her. Rhiannon asks about Dane, and Violet tells her that there was no spark, and Rhiannon kind of commiserates with her. Riddick meets them on the way to breakfast, and this time Orin is behind the counter, and Violet avoids the food that he serves.
I'm surprised Violet eats anything that she doesn't find herself.
Truly, yeah.
She knows how easy it is to poison people.
She's done it plenty of times.
Yeah.
So in the mess hall, the dynamic has clearly shifted and people are paying deference to Violet because of Taryn. But that also goes both ways. So they're also treating Jack like a pariah, right? Because he essentially, everybody knows what happened during the threshing at this point.
Yes, that he attempted to murder a dragon. Murder, she wrote.
Another way the dynamic has shifted is that the higher years of their wing are sitting with them. Something that they've never done before. And these people basically say there's no use getting to know the first years because so many die. But it's also very convenient now that Violet is the most powerful new writer due to Taryn. So, like, yeah, we're going to sit with you. And I'm like, okay, well, at least you're honest about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fair point.
It's a super fair point. I mean, Violet even herself makes the comment, I don't know, maybe 10% of the way back, where she's like, man, I wish I knew all of these kids' names. But it's not really worth it.
No. And every morning starts with a list of names being read of the dead. And then they're like never spoken of again, so it's fine.
No, not at all. So regardless of kind of like this weirdness, Violet is excited for the new patch that she can add to her uniform, which is a flame for her squad and an Iron Squad patch for having the most new recruits survive.
Holy shit.
Yay.
What a patch.
Also, can I point out that there were 4 of them?
Right. So, like, the other squad just have 1 or 2?
I guess. Jesus. During breakfast, people notice Violet only eating fruit, and they scold her. She tells them it's the only thing that's safe from Orin since he's on breakfast duty. And Imogen, of all people, gives her her protein. So Imogen is the one that broke Violet's arm back in the first part of the book. And she's like, oh, stop being a baby. Eat my protein. Jesus.
Like, you need this.
Right. So Violet is wary of this gesture from Imogen, right? But Taryn tells her through their mind meld that she can trust Imogen. Imogen goes on to tell Violet that she'll be training her in weights to help strengthen her flimsy joints, and Violet realizes that this must be an order from Xaden.
Which, I don't know why you weren't doing this already, Violet. You know you have hypermobile joints.
Yeah, it goes back to me. It goes back for me when we first saw Violet and she had that army
Oh yeah, she just doesn't know what the fuck. The army backpack.
She had the army backpack filled with like 30 fucking books.
And nothing else. Yeah.
Just like totally impractical. Like you are not thinking about this the right way.
Not at all. Backpack.
Fact-pack.
I'm the fact that's loaded up. Sounded really dirty. Oh.
Fact seems like you're saying a bad word or like a slur.
Yeah, it feels bad.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So next we get our first flight training class, and we learn that only 92 riders bond at this time, which is the smallest class to date. That also means that 8 dragons did not bond, or chose not to bond.
Does that include the dragons whose riders fell and died, like, immediately?
I think possibly. I think somebody at some point said that if they don't survive the flight, the dragons can choose to go back and try to find somebody else.
Oh, yeah, because it's very, like, a loose bond for a while, it seems like.
It is, yeah. And they make that point, too, that, like, even though they're bonded, that doesn't mean that it's the permanent thing and that they're most vulnerable now because people will try to kill you and steal your dragon.
Which is...
terrifying. This just keeps getting better.
This was so scary.
So as these new riders mount, Taryn again makes accommodation for her, but tells her it's really in his best interest so she doesn't use her daggers to climb her way up. Again, very pragmatic. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn.
Taryn takes off a second only after the professor and tells Violet he only did that out of deference to the professor, otherwise he would have gone first. Mimi, I'm first.
I am the best.
First. I'm the best.
Don't you forget it.
By the way, did I mention I'm a black dragon? I'm really rare.
I'm really rare and I'm really powerful.
I'm really fucking old.
I'm really fucking old. I'm sick of this shit. Taryn has very big, like, get off my lawn vibes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I love it.
Like the guy from Up, but when he's more mobile towards the end of the movie.
Yes, very much. He's not mourning anymore. He's just kind of, like, curmudgeonly.
Right, exactly. So during flight training, Taryn uses his powers at first to hold Violet in place, but she insists that she needs to learn for herself. So he begrudgingly lets her, and she falls. Over and over and over again. And again, we learn that this is unique of Taryn to catch her, because typically it's not just the flight from the threshing field to the flight field where people can fall and their dragons don't give a shit. It's basically now and till for a while that if they fall off, the dragons can choose to not save them.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, it's your Taryn just has so many sassy moments, but even he's like, are we done now? Like, can we just, girl, you're not going to stay on.
You're not going to stay on. And every time he catches her, it's like, she's being slammed like in between the legs.
Yeah, because he just like, whoop, whoop.
Yeah. So later on, Violet's on her way to train with Imogen, and Dane catches up with her. He tells her immediately that the kiss was a mistake, but it doesn't mean that they aren't friends. Violet is relieved until she realizes he's telling her this because of politics, that he still wants her, just not against the rules, right? And she thinks less of him for it, despite not wanting him at all.
I do like the character flaw of him being so rule governed. It's an interesting character flaw.
Yeah, it strikes me as being like very Mr. Collins.
Yes. Oh, Mr. Collins. It's very Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
He's the worst. I mean, he's fine. He's better than Dane.
Yeah. Is he?
No. Okay. Maybe not. Now I want to watch Pride and Prejudice again. Although I don't want to watch it because I've been called out by Barbie and now I'm a little upset still.
Watch the show.
It's so fucking good.
It's so fucking good.
The hand clenching.
When Violet is training with Imogen, she point blank asks her if Imogen is doing this on Xaden's orders. Imogen claps back with, quote, "Rule number 1, he's Riorson to you first year, and you never get to question me about him, ever." And I'm like, whoa. Okay, girl.
Whoa. Let's take like 30% off there.
Right, exactly. And Violet is immediately feeling like jealousy spring to life at the distinct possibility that Imogen and Xaden are lovers. But Violet's like, whoa, that's weird. I'm definitely not jealous. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Definitely not into him at all.
No, definitely not. Later, Violet is on archive duty, which basically means that she's ferrying library books to and from the archives for the professors. And as she does this, she runs into an old friend there, Jacinia. So you might recognize Jacinia from the dedication in the beginning of this book. It's the same Jacinia.
I did not for a while. Like, I think not until the end of the book.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, well, is it though? I rarely catch things until I'm told.
Look, you're so pretty.
I know, thank you.
So they catch up, and Violet tells Jacinia that she is happy. She asks if they have a copy of the Fables of the Baron that she can borrow. She remembers it being kind of a fairy tale book that her father used to read to her. And it's one of the books that she had to leave behind when her sister and she repacked her bags. It's filled with a bunch of dark fairy tales that she hasn't really been able to find anywhere else. As she waits, Professor Markham comes along with some of his new class of cadets, and he asks her for wisdom on why the archives are so stuffy, and she informs the cadets that it's to reduce the risk of fire. And I can't help but think that this is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie before.
I've passed this tree. These first year archive cadets have been there as long as Violet has been with the Riders. You didn't learn that by now? That feels like Archives 101. Don't light fires.
Yeah, it feels like they should, like, when you get on a cruise ship or a ferry boat and they, like, kind of run through, like, what happens if the boat's gonna sink. Like, you should do that.
Yeah.
First.
Right. So I was like, this
Start
feels like
there.
a little bit late in the day, too.
Right.
Educate about the stuffiness of the archives.
But what do I know?
Right, nothing.
So Professor Markham and his class leave, and so she's still waiting for Jacinia, and she's alone. And when she's there, kind of in the archives, smelling these familiar smells, in kind of her comfort zone, she misses the life that could have been. And Darna checks in, and Violet tells her that, you know, she shouldn't worry. She's happy, and she feels that the Riders is the right place for her, but she just misses what could have been. Shortly thereafter, Jacinia comes back with the ordered books, but tells her that she couldn't find the Baron book. And Violet finds that odd, but she doesn't really push. Justinia goes on to say that she found plenty of books on other magical creatures, but not the wyvern or the venin that supposedly created them, which are found in that Baron book. Something to note here, too, is that Justinia, I believe, is either deaf or mute because she signs.
Mm-hmm. Which I love. And who is she with Liam here, or is she with... Oh, we don't know.
She's alone right now.
She's alone. Okay.
Yeah. So at the lunch table, Violet is sitting with her wing, and they're talking about signet powers. And remember, signet powers manifest once a person has bonded with a dragon. And not only are, these newly bonded writers figuring out what it's like to be bonded with a dragon and write it, they're also kind of waiting around for their powers to manifest because it's never prescriptive, right? Depending on your power, it could manifest in a specific way. And so Sawyer's signet power has manifested. And the poor boy is a metallurgist, meaning that he can manipulate metals. But he's sitting at lunch, staring at a fork, making sure that it doesn't come flying towards his fucking face because he can't control it yet.
So funny.
Poor guy.
His friends are like, we're gonna get you wooden forks. Like, it's gonna be okay.
It's okay, chopsticks or something, guy. I'm so sorry. It's
hilarious.
Even sadder because Sawyer's a repeat first year, too. So he's waited so long for this, and then his power manifests, and it's just so dangerous.
It's so dangerous. And he's surrounded by daggers, like, all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Seems so scary.
So we go on to learn that the relics that the dragons marked them with are conduits for the magic they can channel. And if they don't manifest a signet power in about 6 months, the magic buildup could kill a cadet, and has done in the past. One thing that comes to mind now about relics is that relics are what help them channel the power of their bonded dragon, but that's also what they refer to the markings on rebel children as.
Which were given to them by a dragon.
Right. So if it was a bad thing...
Why? Right, if it's just
Why would it be the same thing?
If it's just a way to get you more power.
Right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So on their way to flight training, they see Jack with another cadet who's taken over a bond for a cadet who died. So a cadet bonded with a dragon, that cadet died, and then this other person who had not bonded took over the bond. Nothing really happens there, it just really serves to teach us about that specific dynamic.
Happen.
Yeah. During flight practice, Violet falls less. Taryn tells her that he's hard on her because he's preparing her for battle, not the parlor tricks her professor teaches, right? So what's happening is the professor's leading them all in flight formation, and Taryn is kind of doing his own fucking thing.
Just like going like a loose fucking cannon.
He's going apeshit, and Violet's like, can you not for 5 seconds?
They're all doing like nice little like loop-de-doos, and he's like, corkscrew!
Yeah, he's like, vertical up, vertical down, let's do this. So Violet's like, fine, I get it. And she asks if Aunt Darna will join them, and he says likely not. Violet whines that she never gets to see Aunt Darna, and is basically missing her.
Yeah.
After flight practice, Dane approaches her and is angry. And Taryn kind of, like, starts posturing because he doesn't like Dane's tone or body, like, language at all. Taryn tells Violet in her head to tell Dane that he'll scorch the ground where Dane stands if Dane harms her. And Violet's like, yeah, I'll tell him. And he's like, he waits to make sure that she does. He's like, no, I need to hear you tell him. Like, you need to say the words.
She uses some other thing like, he doesn't like the way you're talking to me. And Taryn's like, I need you to tell him this exact thing.
Yeah, she's like,
say it.
Oof. Okay.
He says that he'll scorch the ground where you stand.
And Dane's like, got it.
Cool.
So Taryn flies off and leaves them alone. And when they are alone, Dane proceeds to be an asshole, and he scolds Violet for not telling him that she keeps falling out of her seat.
Why would I tell you?
Her elbow as he does this, and that is no bueno, sir. No bueno.
No, don't touch me anyway, especially don't touch me when you're pissed.
Right. And Violet has a bad reaction to this. She, like, pulls out of that immediately, which I was proud of her for doing.
Yes.
And they go on to argue. Dane constantly nitpicks her weakness, and she points that out. Dane also believes that she cheated on the gauntlet, and he admits that to her, and that makes Violet really mad. So the vertical presentation obstacle course, Amber accused her of cheating, remember? And Dane is basically parroting her words. Violet tells him where to stick it, and essentially says that the reason they'll never be anything isn't because of the rules, but because he doesn't believe in her.
Which is so true, because he doesn't.
After storming off, she quickly encounters a first year whose mind-reading abilities are manifesting. The power is apparently a death sentence, because there's no way that you can really control it, and it's considered to be too powerful. Professor Carr, who is the professor that helps the cadets channel their manifested powers, comes out and kills the boy instantly by breaking his neck.
I wanted to know more about this. This scene is so scary because this boy is basically like surrounded by everyone, and as he's like looking at them, he's just like yelling out all of their thoughts. Like he can't control it. Also, for a second, I don't know if I just like missed pronouns or if it was vague, but I thought it was Rhiannon for a while, and I was like, oh, but
shit, no,
it's not. Yeah, I was like, it's her friend Rhiannon. Oh, thank God it's not.
No.
But I want to know more about this. Like, why is it a death sentence? Because it seems like it would be
really powerful
and convenient. Like, this is the army. Like, why don't we want that?
Yeah.
If you can teach them to control it. It's like, why can't you just go put him in a room by himself until he can figure it out?
Right.
And if it's like a death sentence, then, well, I mean, I guess the dragons don't control their power because their signets are some melding of the two, but just coming out and snapping his neck, like, I want to know why. Because clearly, it's like when you see a sign that doesn't make any fucking sense somewhere, like, it's ridiculous, like, don't put your fingers through the bars because the monkeys will bite them off, because someone did.
Right.
So, like,
exactly.
So, like, why is this now a rule? Like, who fucked that up for everyone?
Exactly. And, like, why is it automatically assumed that there's nobody who can control it, right?
Yeah, because they don't even give him a chance. Like, he can't control it right now, but I mean, think back to Sawyer, whose fork tried to kill him. Like,
I know.
They're all dangerous when they manifest.
Yeah. So later that night, Violet dreams, but Taryn forces her to wake. The dream is kind of nebulous. Unfortunately, this isn't a dream sequence. Like, we don't get specifics here.
Good.
Because Taryn very quickly forces her to wake up. And when she does, she realizes that there are 7 cadets in her room trying to kill her. She looks kind of over to the door, and she recognizes who let them pass the lock, but we don't find out who that is yet. Don't worry, fair listeners, we will.
I take back what I said about it being Rhiannon, the mind reader. I thought that was Rhiannon.
Yes, I thought this might have been Rhiannon too, and I was like, no!
My notes have no context. Like, it literally goes like, why can't they keep someone who reads minds? Space. It's her friend Rhiannon. Oh, thank God it's not. And I was like, those are the same. No.
Those are the same. It's the same scene.
I thought it was Rhiannon because she very much recognizes the silhouette.
She sees the person because they're like backlit, so she can see part of their face. So Violet fights off the cadets, with Taryn coaching her through it, but is eventually overpowered, right? There's 7 of them, and she's just a weakling, right? And she's also 3'0". Orin, of course, is one of the people who is trying to assail her. He grabs her and goes to slit her throat, but Darna shouts, "Mine," in Violet's mind, and manifests her power, or so we think. And this power is the ability to stop time. Everyone but Violet freezes what they're doing.
Which is fucking wild.
I fucking loved this so much.
It was such a cool scene.
It was.
And
I love that Darna's just like so possessive.
Mine!
Yeah. She reminds me of like, I have not had this experience, but like it is an experience that I know people have where like you interact with like a toddler and they're just suddenly attached to you for no reason.
Yes. I'm just going to claim you forever.
Right. Like you're my person and you can never leave. Okay, great.
Yes.
So Violet uses this opportunity to wiggle free of a frozen Orin and makes it to the door of her room where Xaden is standing. And that's when time begins again. Xaden goes on to kill 6 of the assailants with his shadows, which is apparently his signet power.
Oh, I love me a shadow daddy.
And when he gets to Oren, Oren starts pleading for his life, and Xaden tells him, quote, "She should have killed you in the field, but she's merciful. That's not a flaw that I possess." End quote. And I loved the fuck out of that. Holy shit.
It was, it's so good because just, he very much could say, like, that's not a trait I possess, but the fact that he, like, still calls it a flaw.
Right.
And it's just like, no, I'm gonna fucking murder you. There is also this, like, really brief moment where they all freeze, and then when time comes back, Xaden does, like, a triple take, like, how the fuck are you next to me?
Yeah, he very much clocks the fact that Violet was over there, and then now she's here.
Yeah. She's just like, ha!
Hi! Help me!
I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that too, because this line very much was like scary dog privilege, right?
Yes.
Like, I get to be bubbly Lisa Frank because I have this death mask over here that's helping me.
Yes, which is the best. I love scary dog privilege. Yes.
Yeah. Like, it's very much, so we talked about a lot about in Blood and Honey how Lou was the one who was willing to do all of the dirty work and, like, didn't really think twice about it, had a very clear vision in her mind about, like, where she wanted to go, and then people around her had a problem with that. And I feel like that script is reversed here. Like, Violet very much wants to, like, can't we just all be friends and talk it out? We don't have to kill these people. And Xaden's like, I'm gonna kill first and ask questions later. Cool?
Yeah,
cool.
Like, cool, got this, all right. I love it.
So he, of course, slits Oren's neck with one of Violet's knives, with his own hands, rather than using his shadows to control it for him. It was personal.
It was personal.
Xaden kind of vocalizes why he felt justified killing 7 people. And it's because there is a rule in the codex of the school that attacking another writer in their sleep is very much verboten.
There's something specific about how, like, it shouldn't be easy to get into any of their rooms either, right?
Well, her door was locked.
Right, so it being unlocked is a issue.
Right.
Got it.
So Xaden, I think, uses his dragon to summon Garrick and Bodhi. They, like, all talk to each other or whatever. But essentially, Garrick and Bodhi are on cleanup duty. Sorry, guys.
I love the name Bodhi.
I know, I do too. Once the bodies are gone, Xaden demands to see Violet's ribs to assess whether they're broken, and there is massive tension between them. And Violet definitely understands that he is reacting to it just as much as she is, and she's just like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Don't know with my hands. Right. I also love that, like, yes, Garrick and Bodhi are on cleanup duty, and they ask not a question. They're
no follow-up questions.
Okay, 7 bodies. Let's go.
Cool. Check. What are we doing with these? Okay, the incinerator. Got it.
Typical Tuesday night. Got it.
Cool. So Xaden checks Violet and confirms nothing is broken, and then he laces her corset back up, puts her boots on, her cloak on, and then leads her by the hand out of the fucking room. No one else is awake, and Violet finds that odd, right? There was a kerfuffle, but nobody heard anything. What's happening there?
Like, 7 people were just murdered. That's not a quiet thing.
Right, and they were, like, fighting around her room, so her room is, like, trashed.
Yeah.
Xaden leads Violet through the school and into an area supposedly used for storage, and he uses his power to reveal and unlock a hidden door. They go through this into a very dark corridor, and he remarks, I hope you're not afraid of the dark, but immediately summons a mage light anyway. And I'm just like, oh, you're a scary dog privilege with teddy bears inside.
Because he does have teddy bears inside, very much.
Yeah, because it's like, it's immediate, right? Like, he's like, I hope you're not afraid of the dark, and then the door closes, and they're in the dark for like 2 seconds.
Right. It's adorable.
So Xaden tells her that they're going to see Taryn to ask what the fuck just happened. And Violet doesn't offer any information. She's just like, yep, sounds good. But also, in her mind, she's like, you're never going to believe me.
Like, I can't tell you.
Right.
I don't believe me.
This isn't a power that she's ever heard of happening before.
Mm-mm. And it's a big deal.
It's a big fucking deal. As they walk along, Xaden asks her to keep the secret tunnel that they are currently using a secret. And she's like, yep, check.
I don't have any secrets.
Who am I going to tell at this point?
Also that.
Once they get to the flight field, Xaden basically gets in Taryn's face and demands to know what the fuck power that was that he channeled into Violet. And it becomes clear that Xaden can speak with Taryn telepathically, and that Violet can also speak to Sigale because they're all chained together like a fucking daisy chain.
I love it.
One exception to this is that Xaden cannot hear Andarna. And so in this conversation, we learned that Andarna is a young dragon. She's juvenile, and that's what Feathertails are. That's also why there's not a lot known about them, because typically they don't leave the veil. So humans don't see them, nothing to see here, don't ask any questions. At some point, Andarna will mature into a fully grown something dragon.
We don't know what.
Right. And at that point, Violet will be bonded to two full fucking adult dragons. which is metal as hell.
It is so metal, and it's a big deal.
Kind of a big deal, yeah.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Hair flip. And this is also where we learn that Andarna is an orphan that Taryn and Sigale look after. Andarna in this conversation reveals that Feathertails aren't supposed to bond to humans because they can end up giving all of their powers to humans and die. And that's essentially what Andarna did when she did the whole stopping time thing. So she was giving her power to Violet to channel. And that's kind of a thing that the Feathertails can't control. So when dragons are adults, they're channeling power into humans, but they can cut it off, right? They have control over how much of the reserves that magic is taking. But Feathertails don't. And that explains, again, why Feathertails are never seen. Because if the humans knew that they could bond and steal their power, they would absolutely do that.
100% would do that because they're shitty.
Right. So Sigale and Taryn make Violet and Xaden swear that they won't talk about this or share any of the secrets. Like, they're making a blood pact here. Like, don't fuck this for us.
Don't fuck this for us. We all need to keep this secret.
Right. They also swear that because Violet can use this power, they all swear not to talk about it. The power will probably, super likely, don't worry about it, go away when Andarna gets older anyway. So let's not talk about it at all. And my note here is, sure, Jan.
I know. Like, that's, again, I've seen foreshadowing before.
I've seen this book before. So on the way back to the school or to the dorms or whatever, Violet tells Xaden that there was a writer who let the unbonded into her room. And she tells him, although we still don't know who it is. And Xaden doesn't react at all. He doesn't actually say a word to her after that. Not even the morning after. So he basically stonewalls her after that.
It's fucking, like, I don't even have anything to say because it's just, come on.
That's such a weird reaction to have, right?
It's such a weird reaction.
And I don't even get it even after knowing, like, who it is and, like, how all this plays out. Like, you could have been, like, I don't know. He could have been like, don't worry, I'll handle it.
Yeah. Literally anything.
Right. I don't know.
It's just such a weird reaction.
I feel like it was just a ploy for him to be, like, moody and dark, you know?
Yeah, you gotta have that brooding bad boy.
Exactly. So the next morning at formation, where they read the names of the dead, obviously they read the names of the 7 that snuck into Violet's room. And Xaden decides to give Violet basically a bodyguard. And it's a first-year rebel, and his name is Liam. He's exceptionally strong and talented, and Violet is not thrilled. But she accepts that this is something that must happen because she's bonded to Xaden, she's a liability, blah, blah. But she also realizes in this exchange that the reason that she hasn't, quote, celebrated with anybody after bonding is because she actually wants Xaden. And she's just like, fucking hell, man. Why?
Because he's a shadow daddy. Sorry.
Fuck Xaden, give me Dragon Daddy.
I mean, seriously, though, give me Dragon Daddy.
Yeah, right?
It can be who I choose, with Dragon Daddy and Shadow Daddy.
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that.
So it's here that Dane finally notices the bruising around Violet's neck from the night before when she was attacked, and gets angry that she didn't tell him again. And her point is, when the fuck would I have told you, dude? Like, get off me.
Right, like this just happened, and also I don't have to tell you anything.
Right. Like, this is the first time I'm seeing you. Consider this me telling you.
Consider this my notice.
Right.
Of our friendship.
Goodbye.
Goodbye!
So after the regular formation announcements, Xaden goes on to accuse the writer who let the unbonded cadets into Violet's room, and we find out that it was Amber Mavis. So remember, that's the woman that Dane was close with and who also accused Violet of cheating during the presentation gauntlet. Dane immediately refuses to believe it and tells Violet to help Amber.
No.
Violet tells him that she was there and she saw her. And the comparison between Xaden and Dane's behavior is pretty damning, right? Like, Xaden didn't say anything. He didn't even question, like, if she was certain. He just was like, yep, took it at face value and acted on it.
Yeah,
and
like,
Dane
you're right.
like,
I'm going to fix this.
Yeah. Which, okay, maybe going back to, like, why he reacted that way, it is kind of more powerful that way.
It is more powerful. That would mean more to me. But the juxtaposition really does show, like, Dane. Because, like, Dane doesn't even ask a follow-up. Like, even Dane doesn't ask, are you sure? He just is like, he's lying, fix it.
Right. I know he's lying. Like, you can fix this.
Yeah. Where it's like, no. Why would I fix this?
So Dane reaches for Violet intending to search her recent memories, right? So his signet power is he can touch somebody and see their most recent memories. And because of the time-stopping thing, she can't let that happen. But she also warns Dane never to touch her without her permission again.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't last very long, unfortunately.
No, it doesn't at all.
She realizes that Xaden hasn't asked for any proof because he believes Violet without it.
Yeah.
It becomes clear that Dane is prejudiced against Xaden because he's a rebel kid. Amber and Xaden hold the same rank and position as wing leaders. So Violet asks Taryn to share the memory, sans time walking, of course, with the other dragons so they can have proof. Violet tells Dane that there's a reason she didn't tell him, and it's that she knew he wouldn't believe her even though he's supposed to be her best friend. Amber is, of course, found guilty. Violet asks if there's another way so Amber's dragon doesn't suffer the loss, but Taryn says not. He incinerates Amber and her dragon screams in mourning.
Well, sucks to suck, Amber. But this, like, rule-following brigade of Amber and Dane. The fuck were you doing, Amber?
Well, I think it's pretty damning, too, that, like, Dane wants to follow the rules except when they don't suit him.
100%, yes.
Because if there was any whiff of an accusation, he would have, if he was really a rule follower, been like, okay, well, we need a trial, right? Like, how do we get a trial?
Yeah. And, like, what, like, let's actually stop for 3 seconds and, like, talk about this.
Right. But he didn't do that, right?
No, not at all.
So we next see Violet conducting archive duty with Liam. And she admits to herself that actually Liam is actually quite nice. So she doesn't mind his company. At the archives, Liam and Jacinia flirt, and it's cute because Liam knows how to sign with Jacinia.
It just, like, automatically starts signing and, like, flirt signing.
But as Jacinia goes off and, like, fills their orders or whatever, Violet's like, don't fuck with her. Don't do it. I'm watching you.
Don't do it, you fuckboy.
She's like, Jacinia's a long-term kind of girl, if you know what I mean.
And you clearly aren't, you fuckboy.
Yeah.
But also, like, bitch, you don't know me.
You don't know me. You don't know my life.
You don't know my life. You don't know my choices. Where I come from. What I've been through.
Liam and Violet go on to talk, and they end up exploring what happened to the children of executed rebels. Violet learns that not only were more people executed than officially reported, like Liam's father, but that they also separated family members like Liam and his sister, so that when they put them into, quote, foster homes, they put them into separate foster homes.
Which is disgusting.
I mean, this is, like, the definition of war crimes, right? Like, that's just deeply upsetting.
Which, also, just real quick, Divergent callback. The rebels are, like, kind of the good guys.
Liam goes on to reveal that the reason that he knows Xaden so well is because they were fostered by the same family, so they're essentially brothers. He goes on to reveal that 170 rebel children were rehomed in total, and the oldest is Xaden, and the youngest is 6. She was born with her rebel relic.
I want to know so much about these relics because it's
so fucked up.
It's so fucked up. And it also seems like being born with a relic is not a thing. So, like, how long does this line progress? Like, if the rebel children have children, are they all going to be born with relics too?
Right, and what does the relic do? If it's the same kind of thing as, like, the bonded relic, that could be a good thing, actually.
It could be a good thing. And
I don't know.
Just to remind me, the rebel relics came from Melgren's dragon, right?
Correct, yes.
Which is, whose side are you on?
I know. I feel like the dragons are on their own side.
They totally are.
And that they're just using the humans as a matter of convenience.
Mm-hmm. Which is fascinating. Because it does seem, as we get more about their, like, connections, it does seem like, I mean, we've already sort of talked about this, but dragons seem to have full range in their riders' brains, and it doesn't go the other way. Like, they can, like, block out their human a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. So Violet, of course, finds this information incredibly barbaric. She also wonders how much her mother knew and agreed to. Although we did learn in one of the kind of before chapter snippets that she at least opposed the punishment of the children.
Yes.
So as Liam and Violet head back to the writer school, they end up accidentally reading the battle brief for the day, and this battle brief is about a raid in the south at a village called Somerton.
I did like the scene because they have this, like, weird panic of if they were allowed to read it, but, like, it wasn't sealed, and, like, they're gonna tell us about it anyway, so, like, it's probably okay that we read it, right? Ugh.
Yeah, they're both so just, like, lawful good. They're like, we're not gonna this isn't gonna go on a permanent record, right?
Yeah, it's just really funny to me.
Yeah. So they bond over that, and then they also bond a little bit in the knowledge that neither signet power has manifested yet. They're like, it'll happen, for sure.
We're not going to die from this magic buildup.
Yeah, we're totally not going to die. But when they go to battle brief later that day, they do not talk about Somerton. They talk about something that happened a while ago, decades ago. And both Liam and Violet are caught out, and they're like,
what?
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. When they leave the class, Liam asks Violet whether the scroll was marked classified, but Violet says no, and they both surmise that they must have missed it somehow. But they never talk about Somerton. Not in the next class, not in the class after that.
Never comes up.
This leads Violet to wonder what else never makes it to battle brief.
I have mixed feelings about this because you are students, so it does make sense to me that they're not telling you everything.
Right.
And I mean, it's set up to be, like, really sinister, and it does feel really sketchy, but some of it is kind of like, well, yeah.
I don't trust half of you people anyway. Most of you are going to die, so why are we wasting our time?
Exactly.
Yeah. So later on, Violet and Rhiannon are sparring. Rhiannon is going easy on Violet, and Violet is frustrated she hasn't channeled her signet yet. Xaden and Garrick arrive, and they start sparring in a different ring, shirtless. And Rhiannon and Violet kind of stop, and they're openly gawking at Xaden and Garrick's male forms. They're just like Rhiannon and Violet are fighting, and they're just kind of like, oh. Oh, how about that? Wow.
How about them apples?
But as they're doing that, Violet notices that Imogen is doing the same thing, gawking at Xaden and Garrick, and she feels the hot sting of jealousy again. She's like, oh, fuck, that's inconvenient.
I don't like that. That's my body to look at.
Right. So they go back to sparring, and Rhiannon knocks Violet down accidentally. She super didn't mean to, but Violet went a different way, and Violet gets laid out. Jack is nearby, and he starts talking shit again, and Violet's protectors close rank pretty quickly. Jack tells Violet that they can settle things right then and there, but Violet is afraid that she won't win. Violet does throw in his face that he's the one that ran the day in the field at the threshing, not her.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack, this causes Jack to react, and he lunges for Violet, but Liam bodily removes him from the gym. Like, Jack goes to lunge, and Liam just, like, picks him up from the ground and is just like, time to go.
Yeah, I just picture, like, a bouncer, like, yeet, right out the door.
Exactly. So, again, Dane scolds Violet for goading Jack. But Xaden steps in, and instead of scolding her about goading Jack, he's like, why the fuck aren't you wearing your armor? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Off.
Right.
Well, she's like, it's wet and gross.
I have to clean it sometime.
Right, like, I thought I was safe here.
Right. So they essentially get into a pretty loud and big tiff over this. And this ends up being one of those, like, electric fights between people that don't want to admit that they have chemistry or sexual tension.
Like, any moment they could start fucking.
Right. And everybody can tell, right? All of the people around them, like Rhiannon and Imogen and Garrick and Dane, they're all just like, what the fuck?
You guys want to get a room?
Does anybody have a hose? Jesus.
Like, where did this come from?
Right. And that makes Violet be like, oh, shit.
This looks...
I gotta go take a shower.
Oh boy, I gotta go take a cold shower.
So she starts backing off, right? And Dane tries to intervene, but Xaden accuses him subtly of only defending Violet when it suits him, referring to when Amber was executed.
Mm-hmm.
As Xaden walks away, Violet openly admires his back, but she can see tiny scars there, and she gasps quietly. She's just like, oh, fuck, that looks painful.
What the fuck was that?
But the little gasp makes Xaden stiffen. And I'm just like, the tension of it all!
Ah, it's the Mr. Darcy hand clenching!
I know!
Ah, I love it!
He's so attuned to her.
I know!
So, of course, the thing about books like this, right, is that you have to remember that they're never really alone.
No.
Because Taryn remarks in Violet's mind hole that Violet controlled her temper and held her own, and that means to him that she's finally ready to channel her signet power.
Also means that he witnessed this whole fiery,
sexual
tension, fiery argument.
Yeah, it's kind of like having your dad watch, like, I don't know.
Watch you flirt heavily.
Yeah, watch you flirt, yeah.
Yeah. It's like if your parent chaperones the prom when, like, you were still allowed to, like, grind on people.
God. No. So later that night, Violet's alone in her room, and she's thinking about the fight that she had with Xaden, and she's just, like, cringing. Just like, oh, God, that's so bad. Why did I do that?
Everyone
and
saw.
Of course it's at this moment that Taryn unleashes his power into her, right? So he told her that she's ready to channel, and he just basically lets the floodgates open. Boop. Afterwards, she can feel Taryn's emotions more clearly and feels a need. Specifically, Taryn's need for his mate. And this makes Violet want to fuck anybody, but mostly Xaden.
But also anybody.
Right. So she runs from the dorms and flees into the woods before she does something stupid like takes out her lust on Liam.
Oh yeah, because he's like guarding the door.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, hello.
Right. And she's aware that, like, this feeling that she has it's a likely product of Taryn and Sigale copulating.
Mommy and Daddy are not fighting.
No, not that kind of fighting.
It's really awkward. Also, like, warn a girl, Taryn.
Give me a heads up, man.
Buddy. Outside, of course, she runs into Xaden, who is smoking something called churum, which he says helps put distance between the feelings. And he offers her some, but she declines. He offers to help Violet learn to shield against Taryn to get some relief. Give me some different relief, buddy.
So, Xaden kind of starts flirting with her, and he tells her to ask nicely and say please and things like that, and she does because she, like, wants any kind of relief. But then Xaden lets on that he kind of is into Violet because he says things like, you have incredibly touchable skin. And Violet's just like, what are you saying?
I thought you were
right
gonna
now?
help me.
Right, this is the opposite of help.
All right, like, or we could go this way and it'll be other help, but like, you gotta pick one or the other, bro.
Right. So Xaden tells Violet to picture someplace that feels like home vividly to ground herself. And she, of course, pictures the archives. He then coaches her to visualize the source of Terran's power, which to her is visualized as a door in the archives. He tells her to close and lock the door, and she does. And when she kind of comes out of this visioning, right, Xaden tells her that she's incredible, that it took him weeks to be able to do that. And she teases that she has a better teacher, and they both agree that kissing the other would be a mistake. I have a great teacher, but kissing the teacher would be bad, right?
I'm not supposed to talk about the teacher.
Right?
Right? Right?
But of course they go on to do it anyway,
of
because
course.
this is what we sign up for.
This is what we're here for.
Yeah. And the kiss is incredible, right? Violet knows in that moment that Xaden is all that she wants, that she's fucking ruined for anybody else or anything else.
Oh boy.
But the intensity of the kiss makes her hold on her grounding falter, and the door to Terran opens. Xaden seems to feel this and pulls back, and he's like begging her to leave and to go. He tells her that he doesn't want to act on emotions that he doesn't think are hers. Violet understands, kind of intellectually what he's saying, but the rejection still stings. And so she leaves.
Because little does he know that her feelings are amplified, but they weren't non-existent.
Correct.
There are still her feelings.
Right.
But I appreciate Xaden's, nope. It's like that line from Thief in the Night that's like, consent when you don't have a choice isn't really consent.
Yes, exactly. Same kind of thing. Yeah. So that is where we will end part 2.
God damn it.
I love that you can see in my notes where we're going to end, but you're still just like,
I'm still mad about it. Because it's like, it's getting good.
I know it's getting good.
Damn it, I know I can see it's right in front of me, but I kind of just blocked that out.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
so good.
Next time we will cover the last, third, and final part of Fourth Wing. So join us to go through the riveting conclusion and then also hear our rating scale for this book. But until then, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.